We have the BIM coordinator for Fehmarn, Giulia Pasinelli, and the project manager of Molio and Building Smart Denmark, Tórður Áka Jacobæus. Please welcome both of them to the stage.
Yes, thank you for the invitation to present our project today. You have introduced us, so I will just walk through. We will introduce an accelerated program today, which involves these parties, Fehmarn Belt, and then Building Smart International and Building Smart Denmark. The project organization look like this. We have the client, which is Fehmarn, and then a project manager group, which consists of Building Smart Denmark, International, and then Fehmarn. And then we have a technical group, which consists of me and Søren. I think Søren was here last time introducing you to a CCI classification. And then we have a team from Building Smart International, Evandro, Arthur, and Leon. And of course, we have Giulia and Marina representing the Fehmarn. So,
yes, today's presentation is divided in 3 main sections. In the first section, I will give you an overview of the project itself, its complexity, and why we embark with the accelerator program. In the second section, Tórður will introduce the information delivery specification and the open BIM workflow in general, and then we will go through the accelerator program that we develop in our project. So let's start giving you a brief introduction on the Fehmarn Belt Tunnel project. This is the ownership of the project is from Fehmarn, that is 100% Danish state-owned company that has the task of planning, construct, financing, and construct the tunnel between Denmark and Germany. And Fehmarn is a subsidiary company from the Danish and the state owner Sundbælt. So the project itself is a major infrastructure project that will connect the Nordic countries with the Central Europe by the construction of itself of an immersed tunnel. But we will see that there are many other infrastructure involved in this project, fixed link, that some part of it are related to the railway and the motorway approach in the interland of both the Danish and the German side. The tunnel itself that we are building currently, that is made up of 2 portals, one on the Danish side and on one of the German side, and an immersed tunnel. And then operation and maintenance facility and authority buildings at the borders, M&E, and the SCADA system that are also related to the functionality of the tunnel itself. A power supply station that will serve for the SCADA system as well as for the traction power of the railway in the project. And then all the railway facility related, so track and catenary system for the railway, and some of the reclaim area that we construct both on the coastal line on the Danish and the German side as coastal protection. So the project is 18 kilometers world's longest tunnel, immersed tunnel so far. So this is made up of 89 tunnel elements. Those are divided in 2 main categories. 79 are a standard element, 217 meter length, and 10 divided by 10 special elements that has, as you can see here from the sketch, a basement with the technical rooms that are used to operate the tunnels. The tunnel, as you can imagine, Fehmarn has awarded many contracts spanning from the dredging and the reclamation works to the construction of the tunnel itself, the M&E and the utilities supplier, and all the railway facility connected to such a project. And so the many contractors have been awarded of design and build contracts. And this gives the complexity of the project. Fehmarn, as mentioned before, is a subsidiary client company from Sunenbelt that is wholly owned by the Danish government and Sunenbelt, so the Danish Ministry of Transport. The construction information team is made up of 5 people right now in Fehmarn, and we are part of the digital division in Sunenbelt. All tasks related to the technical BIM topics are on the project. Fehmarn project itself is taken care of from us. So we have Lars Sarup, that is our BIM and ITC manager, and the project and the accelerator program was initially initiated by Marina Calisti, that is the senior BIM coordinator within our group. So now the Fehmarn project is the main project between the value chain from Sunenbelt, that is at the construction division. And BIM itself is not so important for now for us as Fehmarn in the design and the construction activities. But what is our aim is also to deliver the information, asset information, that comply with the Sunenbelt operation and maintenance requirements to their system. So we need to ensure data consistency and integrity. And we also want to avoid any data drop between the different phases of the project. So currently the phase that we are having is the design and construction phase. But of course, we are already heading towards the handover of the asset information to the asset operation maintenance system that already Sunenbelt is using for other infrastructure projects within Denmark. As mentioned, since the Fehmarn project is a public funded project, it needs to comply with the Danish government requirement of use of the IFC for all the major supported construction projects. Therefore, the open data standard have been a mandate for all these public sector main projects. And that's why we, as an exchange information, we have based all the exchange information in our project between both the client and the stakeholder itself, in this case, our contractor, the IFC standard. And that's why, with the accelerator program, we also wanted to enhance and set the framework to have this open BIM as a standardized workflow in our project. So I already anticipate some, but why we enhance and embark in this accelerator program? To support the value chain, so the data information and the strategy using open BIM standard, to provide the project, our current project, with open BIM tools, such as the IDS that we will show you in a minute, and BSDD, to automatize data validation and the consistency of the data, and to prepare a well-documented and repeatable program that can be used by our contractor in the current stage, but also from other and future projects from the Sunenbelt organization. And then to delivery to Sunenbelt that will operate and maintain the infrastructure, asset data compliant to their requirement. What is the accelerator program? This is a newly developed program by Building Smart to fast-track open BIM service and standard, and to help organization. In this case, our organization is a client organization, to set the framework for the open BIM methodology. And Sonnenbelt has embarked in this project in January 2024. We have had several phases that we will show you later, and we took it in our project to foster the knowledge and adopt the Open BIM standard and help with our current task within the Fehmarn project.
Yes, I have to tell you about a bit about IDS, which we use a lot in this project. IDS is also called Information Delivery Specification, and is one of the newest standards from Building Smart International. So IDS is perfectly for defining and validating information. It's highly structured, so we can use it both while we are generating our information to support it and to support the validation of information when you receive it. But it also gives us the opportunity to visualize it so we can support our contracts. But it's the same ideas we use for that. So if we look at this, the example on the right side, we see an XML version of the IDS, which can be very long. And on the left side, we can see a human readable version of IDS. It's actually the same. These are specifications within that IDS file. So if we look at why IDS is relevant for this project, the CEO of Sonnenbelt is actually telling us it here, because for them, information is the most important thing on their project. They're building an infrastructure project which is meant to last for 100+ years. And they cannot rely on technology because that will change over time, but the information and data will be the same. So for the Fehmarn project, it's important to ensure that every contractor understands the information requirements on this project, and they want to be sure to validate, to have the opportunity to validate the information delivery in a good way, so they can make sure that the information is ready for the operation and maintenance. So if we look at what do we need to build an IDS, in this case, in the Fehmarn project, we have developed the IDS based on existing exchange information requirement. Giulia will come into that later in this presentation. But we have not developed any new information requirements for this project. As you saw, it was ongoing. So ISO 9650 actually state that a client need to go through these steps if we want to get some relevant information. And these are, as I read it, essential part of the standard. So as a client, you need to look at your needs. When you know your needs, you can develop your requirements. There's a connection, of course. And then when the third step is to make some acceptance criteria. And here the IDS helps us a lot, because the IDS can help us very good of standardizing our requirements, so everybody, almost everybody at least, can understand them. But it also made it possible to make some acceptance criteria to check when you get the information delivery to see if you get the information you were requiring. So, yeah. So where can we use IDS? First, I will show you an Open BIM workflow, and then a workflow we develop based on a simple Open BIM workflow to see where we can use the IDS. So here we have a simple Open BIM workflow. We start by defining our requirements. And then the consultant or contractor create a model based on our requirements. And then we can make a check of the information, of the model, to see if the information is according to what we were requiring in the beginning. And then we can share the results, and et cetera, et cetera. This workflow can be expanded. So you can use Building Smart, a reference library to support you. So when you're defining your requirements, you can use standardized terms to support your requirements, but you can also not just check if the information is correct in the model, but you can also see if the export of the model is correct. In a Building Smart context, Building Smart is, of course, supporting every step of this workflow. But you can see here, IDS is relevant in the beginning when you define your requirements, but also when you receive the model to check up to see if the information is according to your requirements. So for this project, we developed a workflow based on this. But first, you will see as-is situation. So here we have terms from the ISO 19615, which is appointing party and appointed party. Appointing party is a client in normal terms. Appointing party can be a consultant, contractor, etc., etc. So as it is now in Denmark, we define our information requirement using text. We exchange this text to the contractor, and text can be interpreted. We are not often that precise when we define our requirement. We leave room for the contractor to guess or, So he or she will read it and generate a model which consists the information they read here, and then they will exchange an IFC file to the client. They will then look at the model, and it's difficult to see if every requirement is met, if the model has every information which you needed. So when we use IDS, the workflow could look like this. So in context to the Fehmarn project, we have the same. We have Fehmarn here as a client, and then we are talking about contractors here. We at Building Smart Denmark and International have, together with Fehmarn, developed these IDSs, which reflect on existing information requirement. We have just made it a bit more detailed. Then Fehmarn has sent or sending the IDS file to the contractor, which now can use the IDS file because the IDS file is telling which property set, which properties, and which values the contractor has to generate within the model. Then the contractor has to make a check by using IFC validation service to see if their IFC export is correct. Because this is necessary because we are relying on a correct IFC model to test it. Then they do the test of the IFC model, and then they have to do an IDS test based on the IFC model. Then they can send the IFC file to Fehmarn. Fehmarn can do the same check or just demand documentation of this test, which has been done already. So what is IDS? I tried to be a bit more visualized here. So it's actually just a file which is highly structured, as mentioned before. And if you use your imagination, this is an IDS file, the white box here. And the IDS file has attached some metadata to it. So that could be a title, copyright, version, etc., etc. These are part of the standard. And the file can have one or many specifications attached to them with different purposes. So if we look at the one specification, it also has some metadata. This is to a description of what is it about, and an instruction and a name. This could be an IFC wall specification. So it's checking everything about walls. Or a window, etc. If we look into the specification, it's divided into three main types according to the standard. We start by description, which could be anything. Then we have applicability. Where is this specification relevant? So if we connect it to IFC already now, this is where we define that this specification is relevant when we talk about IFC window. So we make a connection here to the IFC. And then we have requirement. This is where we define every property and property set we need and value if that is needed in this case. So the description is, as named before, said before, is free to use. But when we talk about applicability and requirement, we rely on 6 different facets, which we use to standardize our requirements. And this is here we make the connection to the to IFC. And in the Fehmarn project, we have actually mainly used the property facets to define our requirements. So here's an example of a specification. We have a description here. All walls must have fire rating properties. We have applicability that tells this, that this specification is regarding IFC wall. And then we have one requirement. It could be many. But we need a property named fire rating and a PZ named PZ wall common and the data type IFC label. And then we could require some value. This is a free choice. You could, yeah. So this is an example, an IFC file with different specification. So we have a specification regarding walls. It could be named just wall. And then space, and then you could perhaps have one regarding classification and identification throughout every specification. You could also leave this into the different specification. That's up to you. So when we talk about IDS, the IFC version is important. IDS actually support those versions of IFC, but often I see in Denmark that the version of IFC is not defined in the agreements. And this is important because in Fehmarn context, it's important that we use IFC 4 or IFC 4.3. We use IFC 4.3 because they are supporting infrastructure project. It could be more difficult to use IFC 2x3 in an infrastructure project because every infrastructure object will end up in building element proxy. So you have to do a workaround there. So how is IDS used in practice? And to show you some example, I could show you this, an XML file, but this is very detailed. I actually began writing IDS using just XML files, but there are also plenty of software tools which support the writing of IDS. And there's something graphical going on there. But here's an IDS file on the software called Áka, where we can see I have 8 specifications here. And now we're looking at IFC pipe segment. We have a name, we have description, and then instruction. And then we can see that this is regarding IFC pipe segment, and we have all of these requirements connecting to IFC pipe segment. It's something about the classification and length, etc., etc. There's plenty of software already now supporting the use of IDS. You can look it up on Building Smart International's webpage. It's quite easy to start doing, so just go ahead and try. If I should come with some recommendation, make some simple tests. Use IFC as the base for your IDS, and use Building Smart Data Dictionary or another dictionary as a reference. So everybody, when you send it to somebody, they will understand what you are talking about. So when we are talking about IDS, these terms are not enough, sufficient. As I mentioned before, we can't just say that we need IFC. We have to precise on which version of IFC is necessary. On this project, we have to be more detailed, as I mentioned before. You have to name the properties and property sets, and of course, value it if that's necessary. So now we're going to talk a bit of some examples from the Fehmarn project, where Giulia will start, actually. Shall
Yes.
I just change?
So we start with this presenting the first step of the accelerator program with Fehmarn. And as I mentioned before, we embarked with this journey on January. And already in March, Fehmarn organized this open BIM workshop along with the International Standard Summit in Valencia, the Building Smart International Summit, where we launched this workshop that is a learning event to have hands-on learning experience on the open BIM standard and the open BIM workflow. The participant, as you can see here, were is Fehmarn as the client company, but also our contractors, and having the support with the expert from the main BIM authoring software that are currently used in the project, and Áka, that was the IDS creator and checker that support our project. So the main objective here was to simulate, we can go next, the workflow of exchanging information between the appointing party, the appointed party using open BIM solution. This is the steps that also Tórður just explained in the to be phase. So we wanted to focus on some of the few objects that we had in the model that we provided, together with some hands-out with the instruction and some of our selected exchange information requirements that were coming from our current BIM specification that we are using as contract documents in our project. And the aim of the workshop and the main takeaways was that we create a very collaborative environment between us as a client and our contractor, advancing and enhancing the knowledge of our contractor itself on the open BIM standard, getting an alignment on the project between all the Fehmarn stakeholders. And the last point that was also very important for the future stages of the program was that we could assess the software capabilities of the BIM authoring software, the IDS checker and the IDS creator, and the BIM model checking software. After that, we could understand that some of the in this workflow, some of the steps were jeopardized by these limited capabilities. So as the first main takeaways after the workshop was to issue this IFC 4.3 expert, made up thanks to the support also of the BIM authoring software expert, just to give them to our contractor to help them step by step in the export to IFC 4.3 according to our exchange information requirement and on how the properties should look like in the model. Because as I mentioned before, the complexity of the project and the different stakeholders needs to not jeopardize the data integrity and the consistency of the data between all the models that we are receiving as a client.
So throughout this project, we are working on 4 phases. Impressive, huh? Just funny for me. We are working on 4 phases. The first phase, which we completed a while ago, is a proof of concept. This is where we, Building Smart International in Denmark, sat down with Fehmarn to look at the existing exchange information requirement and how to structure them into IDS files. And then we worked out a workflow, which you saw before. And then a couple of weeks ago, we completed phase 2, which is a complete IDS. And no, it's not one IDS who rules them all. But this was the main phase of this project. that was actually also a joke, but nobody. No, there was the main phases of this project. So the last two phases we are beginning in next year. And we will talk a bit about them later on. So a reputation. We have built our workshop, now our workflow based on this OpenBIM workflow, as you can see here. And then
these were the input that we provided to Building Smart International and Building Smart Denmark. So basically, our model delivery specification that includes the object category and the properties that in our case are custom properties, but we will see how to improve on this as well. Then our first white list of code, that is our asset classification that is currently in use in the Fehmarn Belt project, and mapping a table that represents the mapping between the object itself and the properties that we are requiring to have for each object or categories of object.
So in the proof of concept, we actually used a software to define those IDSs we generated there. In the main phases, as a phase 2, we actually developed our own IDS generator, which is based on Excel. It's that one. I think it's free for downloading. Where we took all the requirements. The list is much longer than this. And connected to different contracts in the Fehmarn project. And we basically divided them into two categories. Some requirements which were reflecting the BIM requirements, and then some which were reflecting the CAL requirement. And the CAL requirement is mainly based on classification requirements, which you can see here. So here we, as mentioned, this is an example of an IDS and complete IDS file, which has 27 specification, and we can see there's a concrete wall, and here we use classification and applicability. And every requirement is about classification. So if we look into this, we are still looking at the concrete walls, and we have an example where we're diving into requirements within concrete walls. Here we can define that the model must have a property named CCI location ID. It needs a pset named FARS. They developed their own classification system, which is based on CCI classification, and it's named FARS. So, and we have defined the data type here, and this can vary from different software solutions. But we have chosen IC label, and then we have chosen what the value should be. So it should be a letter, one of these letters, and then a two-digit numbers. And we can see an example here, what the value could be. And if we look at an example of an IDS test, it could look like this. This is, again, the Áka software tool, where we can see that in this one, we can see that the value isn't correct because the letter is L, which is not accepted in Fehmarn's whitelist, and the value is beyond what we want to have in this case. This is just a simple test to show you how a test could look like. It will also tell us if the property is not found, as we see here, but also if the value or the property set is not within the model we are testing.
The delivery of this second phase on the creation of the IDS gave us the opportunity to have 10 IDS files created. And this is the number is based on the different type of contract requirements that we have in the different contracts. And those 10 IDS file contains more than 500 requirements. In order to check the tools itself, the IDS tool itself, we provided as a Fehmarn 14 IFC 4.3 Addendum 2 models to Building Smart Denmark and Building Smart International that through the IDS were able to check more than 10,000 elements. So basically, the outcome of this phase enable us to automate the part of the model validation checking and also help the contractor to increase the quality of their deliverables. And then provide also a quality feeling of the product and the models that we are receiving from our contractor. Of course, during the design phase, we are checking our model, but it's hard to check all the geometry and the properties in the model itself. So in this case, IDS will help us in this task as well. And we will give then back to our contractor the export of the issue that we got in the models and possibly the BCF, so that they could also then use the format, the open standard format of the BCF to then fix the issue within their model.
So we have tested different models. For each model, we have made a report, and this think of it more like a proof of concept to show Fehmarn how they could test the model and use the information they get to act on it. So each report is telling which IDS file we are using and which IFC file we are testing. Then there's a documentation of the status on the IFC file, which we have tested to see if this has a consequences on the test. There we have used the IFC validation service to document the status of the file, and then a documentation of that the IFC file is working correctly according to the standard. And then last but not least, we have a summary of the status, information status within the model, which we have handed over to Fehmarn, and then they can act on that information.
Yes, we got this file, methodology and maintenance, that will help us. The first phase is the first part of the document, is all the assumption that we have agreed during the program, since we have had several regular meetings every week, just to understand if the input that we provided were clear and the direction that we were leading to with the program. And then the second part is the maintenance of the IDS files, because of course we could have modification in the requirements, or we could also need to add new requirements. So this is now our tool, and we should be, we have the ownership, and we should be able to maintain and keep the IDS updated. The main takeaways from this phase 2 was then that, of course, as I mentioned, we have our properties, custom properties, but we should transition, not in this project because we are already too much advanced, but for future project, and this is a recommendation that we transfer to Sunenbelt, we should rely on standard properties from the IFC, because we noticed that there are some redundancies in the property itself. Another main recommendation was that, of course, setting the IDS on the IFC 4.3 standard was to set the bar very high, since IFC 4.3 is a newly standard. But for our complex project involving also, yes, infrastructure, but also a lot of M&E and utility asset, we had to lead to and set this standard so high. And of course, the project would last 4 years more. So we hope that our contractor will improve and they will transition to IFC 4.3. But of course, if it's another project, a building project, maybe 4.3 is not 100% required. And then we could also, in the future project, consider to circulate a simplified IDS at the early stage of the project so that the contractor knows which are the requirements that they need to set up since the beginning. Basically, what we would like to do now is to share this IDS and the reports that we got from Building Smart Denmark and Building Smart International to our contractor, to make them aware also of the issue that we are facing and the current status of the models and the property within the models, but also to give them the IDS tool so that they could check beforehand and before submitting the model to us, the quality of the model itself.
So the next phase, which we will begin on next year, we will look into how to, we will import FARS classification into building a smart data dictionary. And then the last phase, which is very important, because IDS is all about making sure that everybody understands the requirement on the project, because then they can deliver the information which the client needs. So we will develop some guidelines, both to Fehmarn on how to use and edit these IDS files if needed throughout the project, but also considering making guidelines to people who are using them in the other hand, the consultant, the contractor, etc., etc. Because if they use the IDS file, it could be easier for them to deliver the information which is needed on this project. This is our presentation. It's on time. So thank you. Mic drop. Goodbye.